The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
I promised you guys some shorter shows this week, and I have yet to truly deliver. Perhaps today could be that day. It's also quite conceivable that it won't be. It was a massive Wednesday card. It was a DFS lineup that I never actually ended up entering. Some of you may have seen my tweet. At about 3:45 p.m. here on the Pacific Coast, I was going through my lineup, trying to build a nice little DFS roster, and my laptop died. Just 100% died. All of a sudden, and this is the weirdest thing, all of the words on the screen, on the Windows-based screens, disappeared. No words on the taskbar, no words on the desktop, no words in Windows Explorer, nothing. Gone. I Googled it on my phone, and it sounds like that means my hard drive is dying, so that's cool. And of course, I couldn't, at that point, Chrome had crashed, everything had crashed, and by the time everything was working even a little bit, it was too late. So I didn't get in on the DFS last week. I have no idea, or last night, I guess I should say. I have no idea how it all went. I don't even know how many people ended up in the contest. It was all a blur. It was a massive blur. I think it was like 90 when all was said and done, which actually, considering how we really didn't pump it as much as usual, that's not bad. So thanks to everybody that got involved. I have no idea who won because I wasn't in it. Congratulations if you won. I have no idea who you were. Well, I'll get into the next one. I assume I may have a working laptop by then. If not, I'll make sure to set my lineup earlier in the day. Problem is that I want to make sure I'm checking on late scratches and stuff like that. There were all sorts of interesting storylines from yesterday. I had a real difficult time trying to build a lineup. And anyway, roll it all together, and here we are. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, everybody. I'm Dan Besbris. We had a massive Wednesday to go over, and so I don't want to delay too much. There were 11 games last night, a whole lot of stuff that we were tracking, big-name pickups that we'd been keeping an eye on, some guys that I think I was higher than others on, some guys that I was lower than others. I want to see how all of that stuff played out, and of course, when you get a game that goes to like 15 overtimes the way Brooklyn and Cleveland did, then you also get some pretty spectacularly large lines. And that was cool if you had any of those guys. If you had someone on a different team, then it was less cool. But we're going to read into it best we can anyway. So let's start with the wild one. Brooklyn and Cleveland. That was nuts. Ball game that took longer than expected to get to its conclusion. 3 overtimes. Yes, the third overtime, by the way, featuring 20 points from Brooklyn. Yeah, they scored 20 points in those 5 minutes. They ended up beating the Cavaliers 148-139. If you're a betting man, this probably left you feeling soured. Brooklyn covered a 7.5-point spread in the third overtime. That's a really tough beat for Cavaliers backers. Honestly, I was running so far behind, I didn't even know what revenge games were on the docket for this one, but if that was one of them, and I'll go back and triple check on that, that's a gut punch. But we did have some fantasy stuff come out of this ballgame. Caris LeVert logged 30 minutes in this ballgame, surprising number. Rondae Ellis-Jefferson logged 29. A number of guys didn't play for Brooklyn. Travion Graham, Rodion Skurix, obviously Dinwiddie's still out. So they were a 9-man rotation in a game that ended up with 63 playing minutes. And you also got some eye-popping lines. The thing that I thought was worth mentioning, and I talked about this on a previous podcast, is that with DeMarre Carroll coming back, he was going to severely hamper Allen Crabbe, and that certainly happened. Crabbe only played, and this is funny to say, only 33 minutes in a triple overtime game. He had 14 and 7 with a block. So by all accounts, the line was okay. But if you were looking for him to hit another 7 or 8 3-pointers and get huge playing time and tons of opportunity, yeah, it's just, as this team gets healthy, he's a guy that gets pushed out a little bit because Joe Harris is kind of a better version of that same skill set. Jared Allen blocked 6 shots. I mean, this was D'Angelo Russell, massive game with no defensive stats, though. That was a little bit of a pisser, and 7 turnovers. DeMarre Carroll had a decent ball game. You can't read too much into this other than I think the only thing that I want to pull away from this game was that Caris LeVert playing 30 minutes this soon upon coming back. That's pretty good. Cavaliers side, couple of things that we were keeping an eye on. Number one, no Kevin Love in this game, but Joe Vardon, who covers the Cavaliers for The Athletic, or just covers out of Cleveland for The Athletic, tweeted that this was an expected rest day. He wanted to play, but the medical staff basically said, take this last one, take the All-Star break, and then the words he said were no restrictions after the break. So we might actually see Kevin Love play in back-to-backs. We might see some 30-minute games. This is your opportunity if you want to buy him. If somebody's worried about how many games he's going to play down the stretch, you might be able to get him at an affordable price. Or if you have him, this is your time to just ride high because he's about to put up some eye-popping numbers on a truly bad basketball team. I think we're talking, and again, the durability is going to be an issue, and the field goal percent will never be as high as, third-year Kevin Love in Minnesota, but you might see him taking 18 shots a game for this team. That's a very reasonable, remember his last 3 years in Minnesota, he averaged about 17 to 18 shots a night. I don't think he's going to make 45% of them, but if you're okay with a guy that's going to hit you in the field goal percentage belly, the other stuff is going to be big. He's going to be over 20 points a game. He's going to be over 10 rebounds a game. He's probably going to get you about 0.7, 0.8 steals a night, maybe about half a block. He's going to be a super high-volume free throw guy that's going to be a big lift there. He's probably going to hit 2.5 3-pointers a game. Kevin Love's about to go nuts. This is the window. All-Star break till the end of March, and then who knows with the silly season, but things are about to get interesting. Larry Nance played 33 minutes in this game, which was lower than expected because Ante Zizic logged 30 minutes and somehow went for 6 and 6. That's a very disappointing night, but he's long since been dropped and should be. Jordan Clarkson had 42 points in this game. He went huge. And Marquise Chris played 28 minutes and was actually fairly effective before fouling out. He, Nwaba, and Nance all fouled out of this game. So did Zizic, by the way. Somehow no one on Brooklyn fouled out. That's, I think, got to be a little bit frustrating. D'Angelo Russell was actually the only net with 5 fouls in this game. But Marquise Chris, 23 and 7 with 3 threes and 2 steals. I'm not putting him on the radar other than, yes, this is a solid line, and in normal circumstances, you'd say you have to keep an eye on the dude. But again, triple overtime, no Kevin Love. When he comes back, that pushes Nance down more towards the 4 spot, those two guys, if they're going to coexist, and then Cedi Osman's going to play 25 or more minutes a game, and I don't know how Chris sees enough playing time to put up the nice numbers when all of those guys are playing. If someone's out, like if Osman goes out again, then maybe he can carve out a role as the backup 4 and backup 5 and turn it into, 24, 25 minutes. But with Osman, Nance, and Love all playing a normal complement of minutes, I don't think Marquise Chris can get quite high enough. We know that there's that fantasy game built in there somewhere if he can do stuff without screwing things up too much. But again, you got to have just enough opportunity, and I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. Milwaukee, Indiana, not a whole lot to read in this one. Obviously, one eye on Wesley Matthews. I've been, as I've said on this show many times, very low on his fantasy outlook, and this game does nothing to dissuade me from that. He's not a guy that can do it with minutes. He's a guy that needs to do it with shots, and he only took 7 shots in 31 minutes. He took fewer shots than, and I read, Bojan Bogdanovic, Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis, Darren Collison, Thaddeus Young, Tyreek Evans, and Corey Joseph. All of those guys, more shots than Wesley Matthews. I don't know what the hell happened to Eric Bledsoe tonight. I'm sure he'll bounce back in the next one, but Giannis took care of things by himself. Detroit and Boston. Andre Drummond had another good game in Boston, but it wasn't enough. The only thing I care about in this ball game, yes, Terry Rozier and Kyrie Irving were both out, so not surprisingly, Marcus Smart had a solid game for the Celtics. But the only thing I really care about in this game, Wayne freaking Ellington. 33 minutes off the bench. I love it. He took 10 3-pointers. He made 3 of them. He could even have a hotter game than that, and he will. He had 2 steals as well. Those that call him a 3-point specialist are overlooking the fact that his per 36s in the steals department is actually a really nice number. He's never achieved these types of minutes before, so we've never really been able to say, oh, yeah, this is a guy that can actually get you a decent number of steals. But he will, if he can somehow find his way to that type of production, he can get you 1.3 to 1.5 steals in 36 minutes a game, and I'm thinking we might actually see it. So I'm very pro Wayne Ellington. If you need threes and steals, he's a very traditional 3-and-D guy. He's going to do it by taking almost exclusively three-pointers, which is nice. The steals will be good. I hope that he can fall his way into a rebound or an assist more than this. And we also got a nice game out of Luke Kennard, so I don't know where that came from. But to me, in terms of stat set, I'd rather have Ellington for the big threes, the big steals. Kennard might get you a few more assists, but that's just not that interesting to me. Maybe I'm being too hard on the kid, right? Because there was a time a few weeks ago I said, man, if only they'd give Luke Kennard some more playing time. So, you know what? If he gets 36 minutes a game, then, yeah, you tried him out there. And I like the fact that they played a Kennard-Ellington 2 and 3 lineup with Reggie Jackson, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and it was guys like Bruce Brown and Langston Galloway that actually kind of got phased out of this thing. So there's a universe where there could be a little bit more fantasy value on this team, and I'm grabbing Ellington. He's the guy that I want to stick on my roster for the potential 3 to 3.5 3-pointers a game average, right? Like this is a potential average for him now. If he's taking 10 threes a night, there are going to be games where he hits 5 or 6 of them. There'll be games where he hits 1 or 2, and you look for a nice little midpoint there. Whereas with Kennard, I don't think he's ever going to take more than, 5 or 6 3-pointers in a game. Boston side is not that interesting to me. Washington lost in Toronto, but we got a big game out of Jeff Green, who appears to be okay, the hip thing. And he's going to be playing big minutes seemingly the rest of the way. They've got all of these wings we've talked about. By the way, Thomas Bryant actually got 19 minutes in this game, which I guess was kind of cool. Bobby Portis still played 28, though, so he's got the lion's share. Bradley Beal, Trevor Ariza, those guys are all locked in. Jabari Parker bounced back, not surprisingly. I wondered if maybe he might get dropped in any spots after that total clunker of a game, and the answer was not really. I think his ownership went down by like 2%, but it's basically held steady over that stretch. So, if you want to pick him up, if he's available in your league, you'll get him, but I think he's largely owned in leagues. And then Jeff Green is the one that I think, admittedly, I was late on the uptake here, but now that they've moved all these other pieces out of the way, particularly Otto Porter being gone, they really want to trot him out there, and Markieff Morris is gone as well, and so the path is clear. So I'm very pro Jeff Green now, after being a bit reticent about buying into it when there were all those other guys that were in the way. But I'm not worried about Jabari Parker taking his minutes. They like that Green can play the 5 if they need him to, and it seems like he's got a role on this team. So if he's available in your league, you should also be giving him a look. He's owned only in 37% of Yahoo leagues, and his ownership's been dropping precipitously because of that hip injury. So give him a look as well. The Toronto side, Marc Gasol's minutes back down from 22 to 19. You can't like that. Certainly with Washington playing 5 wings at times, that does force an opposition to go a little bit smaller. But Serge Ibaka, 30 minutes, Gasol just 19. That's troubling. I thought we'd see his minutes continue to trend up on a game-by-game basis. He still had, actually, by all accounts, an okay fantasy game, 7-7 with 2 steals and 2 blocks, but you want to get him up into those mid-20s. Otherwise, this could be a little bit of a downer. Otherwise, things fairly expected. Giannonobi playing nice minutes with Kawhi Leonard out. Jeremy Lin got 25 minutes with Freddie VanVleet on the shelf for the next 5 weeks, but I think that his opportunity diminishes even when just Kawhi comes back, because that's a lot of shots. Kawhi's going to do more on the usage front than Anunoby did. Siakam, by the way, 44 and 10. What a season he's put together. I'm not buying into the Jeremy Lin thing. 25 minutes is a nice number for him. I just don't think that he can hold at that value throughout the rest of the year. Philly, I don't care about. They're a very predictable organization right now. They've got all their guys. Mitchell Robinson, man, 14 and 13 with 2 steals and 4 blocks. Enjoy it. The rest of the Knicks are, say it with me, garbage. Mitchell Robinson, man, he seriously could be a top 50 guy the rest of the way. It's incredible. Memphis, Chicago. This is one we had a close watch on, and what did we learn? Not much. Mike Conley played 26 minutes as the starter. DeLon Wright got 26 minutes in a reserve role and had a really nice fantasy game. 12 points, 2 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, a block, and 2 3-pointers. But his usage of just 12 left something to be desired in this game. So he's a guy that I think you keep a close watch on. It seems like Avery Bradley is going to see some minutes. This was also kind of a blowout, so the starters didn't get back in at the end of the ball game. Perhaps explaining why Justin Holiday, Mike Conley, even Jaren Jackson, those minutes locked up in the mid to high 20s. I think another positive from this game, if you're not going to, for me, DeLon Wright remains firmly I'm in what I'd call a pretty damn competitive 12-team league that plays like a nice, solid 12-team league. There are some 12-teamers that are not as competitive that play more like, say, an 11. And, Brew talks about his leagues that play a little bit more like 14ers, where DeLon Wright, I think, would be a must-own guy in a pretty competitive 12-team league with a number of other guys popping up on the wire right now. I don't call him must-own, but I do call him must-watch right now, because if this happens again in a non-blowout, then you've got yourself something. The positive in this game, or blowout or not, is Jonas Valanciunas, because we heard he might not play in a back-to-back. He did. There was fear that maybe if he did play in the back-to-back, would his minutes take a hit? They didn't. He got 23 minutes again in this ballgame. He set a career high in assists, by the way, in his second game with the Grizzlies with 5. So they're going to run some stuff through him in the high post. 12 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, a team-high 34 usage rate. He had 3 turnovers because they had him doing so much on offense, and a blocked shot. From a percentages standpoint and the turnovers, this is not the game that you wanted out of him, but 14 shots for JV to lead Memphis. 5 assists, 7 boards, a block. If he's taking 14 shots a night, he's a top 50 guy. So let's just keep holding out hope that he's going to be really locked into that 23, 25-minute zone. If he can get there, this could be an amazing finish to the year for JV. Otto Porter, Lauri Markkanen, big games for Chicago. Robin Lopez played 32 minutes again. Obviously, Memphis, the slow pace, that allows him to get a little bit more action. But they sort of don't have anybody else right now that they want to play at the 5. They'd like Markkanen to see more of his time at the 4 so he's not getting clobbered by guys like Jonas Valanciunas. And maybe that allows Robin Lopez to actually play. I can't believe that this could really continue after the All-Star break, but screw it. Here we are. And that's significant starters minutes for Robin Lopez. I thought he was just getting it because he was playing his brother in that last ball game. If this is going to hold, put him on your watch list, man. For me, this is a one more time kind of thing. Matchup-wise, this made a lot of sense. He was able to guard a guy like JV. Valanciunas not able to shoot the ball quite as well with someone like Robin Lopez on him. Chicago goes into the All-Star break now. Coming out of the break, they've got a back-to-back in Orlando with Nick Vucevic at center, so that's going to be a good test. And then Boston, which has more of the swing center in Al Horford that can move all over the floor and try to pull him away from the basket potentially. If Robin Lopez logs decent minutes in those 2 basketball games, then you go ahead and you say, all right, this guy's legitimately going to play minutes the rest of the way, because this is freaking crazy. He's been a starter now for almost 3 weeks. His minutes were low as a starter for a while, but with Wendell Carter Jr. out for the year and Bobby Portis traded and Cristiano Felicio just epically bad, Robin Lopez might be worth a look. I can't believe I'm even saying it. But again, there's so many guys that are available right now. I don't know that you go and you make that preemptive grab with a guy like him. I think there's spots where you're like, you see it once or twice and it's enough. With him, I think I need to see it a third time. And I don't think he's going anywhere over the All-Star break. If he does, if you miss out on Robin Lopez, it's not going to be the end of the world. He's going to be probably, even if he's playing big minutes, he's going to be 14 points and 5 rebounds with a blocked shot. It's not going to be, he's going to be sitting around that top 100 mark. But these guys are useful because he's not bad in percentages, and that can float a guy in a 9-category league. So keep one eye on him. Minnesota, nice home victory for the Timberwolves with the new look lineup, and obviously the return of Jeff Teague being a massive, massive help for this team. Jeff Teague, 27 points, 12 assists, perhaps finally healthy and ready to roll. Karl Anthony Towns, a nice ball game. Dario Saric, Only 24 minutes in this one. Taj Gibson got 22, but Dario played well. He got 9 shots up. He made 2 threes. He got 8 rebounds as a starter. He looks much more comfortable spacing the floor with Cat and with Teague and these guys that, Carl Anthony, he can spread he led the team in 3-pointers, okay? Carl had 3. Carl Anthony, or whatever you want to call him. And then you've got these other guys in the starting lineup in Josh Okogie, who's not really what you'd call a premier outside shooter. Luol Deng, not a premier outside shooter. It was Taj Gibson, so there was just no floor spacing. And then Wiggins missed this game, but he's not an outside shooter either. He'll take Okogie or Deng's spot when he comes back. Dario makes a ton of sense with the starting unit. And you've heard all of our lectures on this thing, and Taj had won the job. He was a Tibbs guy. They didn't want to displace him, but now Ryan Saunders says, let's open this thing up a little bit. And it looks really good. Out of the shoot here, it's a nice fit. James Harden had 42, but if you're playing against him in a head-to-head matchup, which I am, you're just stoked that he didn't have any steals and he didn't take that many free throws. You feel like you almost got away with one, with him only scoring 42. Chris Paul missed a bunch of shots, but he's starting to settle back into his role. Eric Gordon is terrible and overrated in fantasy. And Kenneth Faried had a rare, poor shooting night dealing with Karl Anthony Towns, and his value now is on the precipice. We don't know specifically the time. We know Capella's supposed to be back after the All-Star break, but we'll have to sort of wait and see. They play on the 21st after the break. That might mean that it's the end for Kenneth Faried. If indeed Capella's back, I can't imagine that. And Clint was dealing with, if memory serves, an upper body injury, so conditioning shouldn't be a problem. So if you're riding Faried, you could make the preemptive switch here. He was such a fun guy to have over the last couple of weeks. Or, it's the All-Star break, and who really surfaced today that you want to go out and, you're dropping him for Robin Lopez, I guess, if you really wanted to. I'm inclined almost to just ride it out, see what happens for a game or two, but it does seem unlikely that he can get up to this high 20s, low 30s minutes, which is what someone that like Faried needs to sustain fantasy value. So this might be the end of the road, and if so, it's been a fun run. Thanks, Kenneth. It's been real. Rob Covington, we got an update on him. He doesn't know if he'll be back after the All-Star break, but it seems like he is making improvements and getting closer. I would think a worst-case scenario would be end of the month. So if you've held on to him for this long and your worst-case scenario is basically 2 more weeks, then you're obviously holding because he could be getting himself back just in time for your fantasy playoffs, and that'd be a pretty sweet get. Call it the best pickup of the year if he misses 2 months and then comes back just in time to help you win. Miami's just the worst, man. I mean, this is just, it's unacceptable. Dion Waiters, he played 31 minutes in this game because Dion was warm, so then he got more playing time. Hassan Whiteside, after a couple of really good games, he's now gotten himself into trouble a little bit. He didn't do much that was bad in this game. It was just a different lineup for Miami that got hot. It was the D-Wade reserves with Dion and Justice Winslow lineup in this one. And, James Johnson was a part of it, and Rodney McGruder was a part of it, and Bam played some decent minutes. Miami's the worst. Simple as that. Generally, you can trust Hassan and Josh Richardson, and neither one of those guys was very good in this game. So, screw you, Miami. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 20 for the Dallas Mavericks in a losing effort. Maxi Kleber played 25 minutes and had 11 points, 4 boards, a steal, and a couple of three-pointers. I still think that he can get up and over that hump. This game was a blocked shot away from being a really nice fantasy game for Maxi. Dallas looks screwy right now, and they made all these giant moves, so you got a bunch of mismatched pieces going, and I think that they're starting to do a little bit of their tanking stuff as well to try to maybe move up a tiny bit in the draft lottery. What does that all mean? Well, my overlove for Kleber probably dials back a little bit. His ability to block shots was what I was hunting for when I said he was going to be the man following the break, and it almost seems like he's drifting away from the basket. I don't fully understand why this is happening. This felt like a matchup where perhaps he could have some measure of success dealing with a guy like Whiteside. There should be more rebounds near the rim. But it's all Luka Doncic right now. The rest of the Mavericks just look like they're kind of floating through the ball game, and that sucks. Dirk Nowitzki got 17 minutes in this game, too, so that kind of limited Kleba's minute total. Maxey, I'm bumping him down my list a little bit. As you may have seen late on Thursday night, I put out my comprehensive centers ranking list post-All-Star break, and the Mavs have been playing so poorly that all of their guys have taken a little bit of a hit. I'm still holding on to Kleba in spots. Again, competitive 12-teamers. But if your league is not a competitive 12-teamer, if it's 10, if it's a 12, that where 2 or 3 teams aren't really paying attention. Some of these other guys like Jahlil Okafor, like Ellington, like Kennard, like Saric, all of those guys take massive precedence over Kleba just based on the portfolio aspect of things. You know what you're going to get in certain spots, and that's when you got to like it. Sacramento put up a hell of a fight in Denver, but ended up falling. Paul Millsap back from the dead with 25 and 13. Jokic triple-doubled in another kind of poor shooting night for him. He's had a couple of those in a row, but you can't much complain about the fantasy line. Malik Beasley, he's just rolling as long as Gary Harris is out. Mason Plumlee played okay, and then it peters off pretty quickly from there. It was nice to see Harrison Barnes actually put together a decent game for Sacramento in a team-high 41 minutes. I actually saw him dropped in a couple of spots, and I can't blame the people that did it. He's actually been quite bad this season. But 19 and 11 with 2 steals and 3 threes, that's absolutely worth owning. He's a very good free throws guy. What we need to see from Harrison moving forward is, can this Kings scheme system, the fact that they want to go lightning fast, where in Dallas it wasn't quite that same build, can this actually help him get back into that top 90 range where I think most folks figured he would spend this season? I'm not sure I'm totally buying it. Seemed like maybe they just needed a little bit more from him in this ball game. Buddy Hield was cold. Bogey was cold. De'Aaron Fox was mostly facilitating in this game, so Bagley was cold as well. So Barnes tried to step up. He was fairly cold by all accounts, but the rebounds are the thing that really intrigues me. If he can play his way into more of that, a little bit more of the peripheral stuff that just hasn't been there this year. He's averaging, he was basically a career low 4.2 rebounds since, if you eliminate the very first year of his career, that's way down there. And with the way the NBA is trending now, he's basically a power forward, so he should be grabbing more boards. Field goal percent is down around his career low this season. Just a lot of lows for Harrison Barnes that maybe we can eliminate in Sacramento, and then maybe you've got yourself a top 90 guy again. So keep one eye on him. I've seen hm dropped in a couple of spots. Not many because of the name recognition. He should have, frankly, been dropped in more spots. But if you're in one of those leagues where someone's like, this is ridiculous, then keep an eye on him. Phoenix and the Clippers, an ugly one, and our good pal Richaun Holmes has been mired in a bit of a slump these days, and I have to admit I'm a little bit sad because it's much easier to defend our buddy Richaun when he's humming along. I'm not convinced that he's 100% healthy. That maybe he came back from that sprained foot a little bit too soon because it just doesn't look like he have the same lift as usual. And this is basically now 2 weeks in a row where he's been not great. I love Richaun. The minutes obviously cap him. He was able to put together about a month and a half of top 60 value in only his 18 to 20 minutes a game. And that's really all we truly need. But if he slumps, it can get ugly pretty quick with the minutes that low. And he's been outside the top 200 for the better part of the last 3 weeks, basically since coming back from injury. So, in a rare twist, I will give all of you guys permission. I give you the official Fantasy NBA Today seal of approval. If you want to go out and trade in Richaun Holmes for somebody who's playing 30 minutes a night, and there are some guys popping up like that right now, I'm okay with it. Ivica Zubac's bounced back after a horrific game his last time out, and as I said, it's going to even out for Zubac. That's just the nature of the beast. He's going to have an okay game like this one, and then he's going to have a clunker, and then he's going to have one that sits right in the middle. This was obviously a blowout, so the numbers, you had to get him early if you were the Clippers, and Lou Williams is on one of his heaters lately. he's going to have a really nice finish to the season with Tobias Harris out. Seems like he's the big winner. I kind of warned you guys a little bit about Landry Shamet, that he's going to cool off. He's not going to shoot 56% or 60% with all those three-pointers. A lot of mouths to feed in Clipperland. A lot of mouths to feed. If you're relying on people on this team, it's got to be Lou Will, Gallo, Zubats if you want a center that's going to sit right around the top 100, top 110, Montrezl Harrell, and then for me, I would say Patrick Beverley, because he's usually going to get you some rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. He's not going to score very much now that they don't really need it again with Gallo back. But, Pat Bev, 4 defensive stats in this game, fairly well covered up the fact that the other stuff wasn't very good. Golden State and Portland, I don't even know what we were really truly looking for in this game. The Blazers did sign Enes Kanter, by the way. That's sort of the news of the evening, but he wasn't there for this game, so we'll talk about that momentarily. You know that Portland's always going to play the Warriors tough, and this was a really difficult back-to-back for Golden State heading into Portland after the hard-fought win over the Utah Jazz the night before. But again, we're watching guys like Jake Layman, and there wasn't a whole lot there. The Kanter thing, and we're going to get to that news in a moment, is interesting, and I will plant my flag on that in a matter of moments. So the 11-game card comes to a close. A few names that surfaced once again. I don't know that I would call anybody on this card the rush to the wire and grab them guys like we had with Dario Saric and Jahlil Okafor the previous evening, but I would put Ellington close. I think I'm higher on him than a lot of analysts out there, and I feel like his ability, he could change your team's fortune in the three-point category by himself. If you can find a guy on the wire that can hit you 3.5 threes a game, in a 4-game week, think about that. I mean, he could basically get up around 15. It would be 14 if we did that math exactly. But let's just round up and call it 15 threes in a week. Go back through your head-to-head matchups if that's the type of league that you're in. And if you're in a roto, it's a little bit of a different beast. He can slowly try to churn you up the rankings in three-pointers. But in a head-to-head where your team makeup can change on a whim, go back through some of your recent battles and figure out how many of them would change if you removed someone on your team that, I don't know, maybe even a different guy that's more of an outside shooter. But just remove someone from your team that was contributing in a category where perhaps you have no business competing, and replace them with Ellington. Replace them with someone's going to hit you an extra 15 three-pointers in a week. How does that change how your team has been playing? Would you win threes most weeks now? Possibly. So keep it in mind. Just saying, these guys that can change fortunes, they are not readily available. And I know that it's like, 2 categories, is that really worth it? He's not going to do anything in rebounds or assists. I think he will actually ultimately get in there and get you a couple of assists. There are never going to be any rebounds available with Detroit, but don't write him off is all I'm saying. This is an opportunity here with things slowing down for a week to reassess your team and look at the clubs you're going to be fighting against and make a plan moving forward. The last day before the All-Star break, just 3 games on the docket tonight. Charlotte is in Orlando. Really not a whole lot to keep an eye on there. The return of Cody Zeller and can he sit back in that top 100 range is something I suppose we can monitor. The Atlanta Hawks, I think we have a better feel for what they're going to do now. I think Taurean Prince is in a better spot with Jeremy Lin gone. I have now officially moved on from Kent Bazemore, so I'm hoping he doesn't have a big ball game here going into the break, because then someone else will obviously be able to pick him up. I just love watching Mitchell Robinson for the Knicks. He's the shining beacon on that team. Oklahoma City and New Orleans. Obviously, with New Orleans, we're watching the Anthony Davis saga, but also everybody around him. This is going to be... could it be his last game playing? Is he even going to play in this one? That last one was an embarrassing one. It's a home game for the Pels, so you got to believe that he's going to want to put on a little bit of a show for that crowd, maybe try to get back in their good graces. And I still am excited about Jahlil Okafor. I know he's going to be dealing with Steven Adams in this game, which is not a very good matchup. But if they really want to run him out there, and it seems like they do, this is an opportunity to prove to me, the fantasy guy, Do you want to play Jahlil Okafor decent minutes the rest of the way? If he gets them in this ball game and contributes in again, that tough matchup, then I'm all over it. And I think that he's a guy that needs to be owned in most fantasy leagues going forward. So that's your Thursday. That was your Wednesday. I do want to mention, obviously, the big news in terms of free agent signings, the buyout market. Enes Kanter signing in Portland. This is worth monitoring for, I don't want to say a potential game-changing kind of guy. I don't think this is that, because you have to look at what Kanter's done throughout his career and sort of where the numerical cutoffs occur. The best comparison I think we can make is probably 2 years ago with Oklahoma City or 3 years ago with Oklahoma City. Either one of those two seasons, the 2015-2016 campaign or the following one, 16-17, where he played 154 games with the Thunder and averaged about 21 minutes a game. His 2 seasons were oddly not all that paralleled. He had a much higher usage the second go-round with the Thunder. But the way that I see this, we can just split the difference on this if it's straightforward enough. He played about 21 minutes each of those seasons, and it was off by 18 seconds. The first year he played 20 minutes, 59 seconds. Second season with the Thunder, he played 21-17. He averaged 8.8 shots the first time around. He averaged 10.2 shots the second time around, and his free throws also went up. So yes, his usage was a bit higher. His rebounds were down. It's tough to completely isolate why any of those one things occurred. But if we, again, split the difference and just say he took about 9.5 shots in 21 minutes a game, and he took about 3 free throws, give or take, in that same time frame, then that puts him in the 13 to 14 points per game range, and it puts him in the 7.5 rebounds per game range as well. And I think we can expect something like that in Portland. They brought him in to shore up a second unit that's had some serious issues this year. When Dame, CJ, and Nurk are not on the floor, the Blazers are a disaster. They have these weirdos, mismatched pieces, guys that Seth Curry helped with floor spacing a little bit. Zach Collins started the year hot, but was unable to sustain it. Myers Leonard has never been a particularly useful fantasy player other than for a day here and there. And so I think, and some of this is narrative prediction kind of stuff with a guy like Kanter. If there were truly as many teams pursuing him as Woj would have us believe, he chose Portland less than they chose him. They were suitors for Enes, and he said, I choose you, Portland. And I would presume it's for 2 reasons. Number one, they're a playoff team, but let's be honest. When you look at the breakdown, if you're going to a Western Conference team, you're probably not giving the Blazers a big chance to advance past, well, Golden State. Oklahoma City has beat them up pretty good. Denver. I feel like in a best-case scenario, you've got Portland exiting in the second round. Does Kanter look at that and think, this is my ticket to a trophy? Probably not. So my guess would be that for someone who's now going to go try to get a contract next year, the best thing for Kanter is to be able to go show that he can be a good teammate and put up nice numbers. And to put up nice numbers and be a good teammate, you need to be on the floor a little bit. So, again, surmising here that Enes Kanter is probably being guaranteed almost all of the backup center minutes on this team. I don't think that they can play Nurk and Kanter at the same time other than against a handful of teams, so it does kind of limit the upside. There's almost no way he's going to play more than about 24 minutes on any given night, and most evening it's probably going to be closer to 21, but he's going to be a very, very high usage guy off the bench. His second unit is going to basically revolve around Enes Kanter, so look for him to get his 10 shots up in 21 minutes. Look for him to get his 13 or 14 points and 7.5 or 8 rebounds a game. And even though he doesn't do anything on the defensive end, he's going to boost you in field goal percent. He's going to be decent enough in free throws to where, as a center, that's technically a positive, right? If you have a center who's not hurting you in free throws. And so I picked him up in a couple of spots. He got dropped in plenty of leagues, but, it's got to be the right fit. It need to be a league where you're looking for the stuff he's giving you, because I don't think there's a universe where he gets inside the top 90. I feel like a best case for him right now is basically number 90 the rest of the way, and probably he's going to sit around number 100. That profile sticks as around like a poor man's Jonas Valanciunas type of line. Good percentages, points and rebounds, and now, of course, JV gets this massive boost. And there you have it. So a lot of really interesting things happening in fantasy right now. I mean, it's just, I don't want to call it overwhelming because it's outstanding, but this is why basically you make 2-for-1 trades all season long. You just keep making them and keep opening up roster spots, because at some point you're going to want to have them available. And this is that point. Because the guys, man, they are abundant. You've got Robin Lopez worth watching, Wayne Ellington worth watching, Okafor, Saric. They're freaking everywhere right now. Harrison Barnes, if he got dropped. Patrick Beverly a couple weeks ago. Sato before that. If you go all the way back, you've got Zubats, you've got Jabari Parker, you've got Jeff Green. The only guy that's really stunk in all of this is Tyler Johnson, and we all sort of knew that was coming, right? He's just not fun. You got Kelly Oubre, who's turned into an absolute stud in Phoenix. So this is a really fun time. It's the pickup season, man. Tis the season for a boatload of new fantasy guys. This, to me, feels like this post-All-Star break, or post-trade deadline, now pre-All-Star break this year. Now, they used to be in conjunction. I got to get used to separating them in my brain. This has been one of the best ones I can remember in the last 3 or 4 years. Just so much, almost like assured value. Almost assured value of some of these guys as they get slotted into big minute roles. Tomorrow, we'll talk to Aaron Bruski, wrap up the week. We'll go through all of these stories. I'm going to get his feelings on basically all the guys that I've been talking about throughout the week. It's not going to be a lightning round because I think we want to do a little bit of a deep dive on some of these guys. Can they sustain it the rest of the way? What do these narratives tell him? Because Lord knows Bruce watched this more times than I have, and I'd love to get his opinion on some of these guys surfacing. The Cantors now being signed and all of these other guys that I've basically called must-own players. Am I right? That's tomorrow. We'll wrap up the week with that episode of Fantasy NBA Today. Wheel it around to Monday, President's Day. We will, of course, have a podcast that'll be a weekend review, the reverse chronological lightning round. Again, big thank you to Micah Patria from yesterday's show. Huge thank you to everybody that participated in the DFS contest on Wednesday. Enjoy your 3-game Thursday, and as I have pleaded with you all week long, if you want to check out the premium membership with a coupon, you can get it as low as $4.99. Today is the last day to do it before the price goes back to its normal February price. This is basically like a demo. You get it now. It's 2 months of premium service for $4.99 with the coupon. Ask me on Twitter if you need it, or I can give it to you right here. It's just Neil, Neil. Neil is the coupon at Hoopball. You can get that from $7.99 down to $4.99. And I haven't bothered you guys for this in a while, but if you're relatively new to the podcast and you haven't rated or reviewed it on whatever service you're using, please do so. I'll love you forever. I'm Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on Twitter. Enjoy that Thursday short card. Enjoy the start of the All-Star break. We'll get into some props with Brewski as well. Ah, yes. All-Star weekend prop bets. That's the good stuff. We'll keep occupied. Don't worry. We got plenty to talk about. Fantasy NBA Today. No breaks.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.